Have you ever wondered what it would be like to have God himself as your direct ruler? What would make people reject such perfect leadership in favor of flawed human authority? Around 1050 BC, the nation of Israel faced this exact choice. For centuries, they'd lived under a unique system called theocracy, where God ruled directly through appointed judges. These weren't courtroom judges, but military and spiritual leaders who delivered Israel from enemies and settled disputes. Samuel, the last great judge, had served faithfully for decades, communicating God's will to the people. But now Samuel was old, and his sons Joel and Abijah had proven corrupt. They took bribes and perverted justice, creating a leadership crisis that would change Israel forever. The elders of Israel gathered at Ramah, Samuel's hometown, with a bold and shocking request. Give us a king to judge us like all the nations, they demanded in 1 Samuel 8:5. This wasn't just about replacing Samuel. It was about fundamentally changing how God related to his chosen people. For 400 years since Joshua's death, Israel had been different from surrounding nations. While Egypt had pharaohs, Babylon had emperors, and Philistia had rulers, Israel had the Lord as their king. Samuel was deeply troubled by their request. The word displeased in 1 Samuel 8:6 suggests he felt personally hurt and spiritually grieved. He brought their demand to God in prayer, perhaps hoping the Lord would reject it outright. God's response was both surprising and heartbreaking. Listen to the voice of the people, he told Samuel, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them. The Almighty revealed the deeper issue. This wasn't about Samuel's leadership or his son's corruption. This was about Israel's fundamental rejection of divine authority. God instructed Samuel to warn the people about what having a human king would cost them. Samuel delivered one of the most sobering speeches in biblical history, describing the ways of the king. In 1 Samuel 8:11-18, a king would draft their sons for his army and personal service. He'd take their daughters as servants. He'd seize their best fields, vineyards, and livestock for his own use. He'd impose heavy taxes and essentially make them his slaves. And in that day, you will cry out because of your king whom you have chosen for yourselves, Samuel warned. But the Lord will not answer you in that day. The consequences would be severe and permanent. Yet the people remained unmoved. No, we will have a king over us, they insisted in 1 Samuel 8:19-20, that we also may be like all the nations, and that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles. Their reasoning revealed three dangerous desires: conformity with pagan nations, visible leadership they could see and touch, and military security through human strength. What they failed to understand was that God had already been fighting their battles. He defeated Egypt through plagues, parted the Red Sea, conquered Jericho's walls, and delivered them from countless enemies. Yet they wanted a king they could see leading armies into battle, rather than trusting an invisible God who had never failed them. This moment represents one of the most tragic turning points in biblical history. Israel was choosing the seen over the unseen, the temporal over the eternal, human wisdom over divine guidance. They were trading perfect leadership for flawed human authority, motivated by fear, pride, and a desire to fit in with surrounding cultures. The parallels to modern life are striking. How often do we prefer visible, tangible solutions over trusting God's invisible hand? Do we seek security in human institutions, political leaders, or material wealth rather than divine providence? Like ancient Israel, we often choose what we can see and control over what requires faith and surrender. God granted their request, but not without consequence. He chose Saul, a tall, impressive-looking man from the tribe of Benjamin, to be their first king. Initially successful, Saul eventually proved the wisdom of Samuel's warnings, becoming paranoid, disobedient, and ultimately rejected by God himself. This story teaches us that getting what we want isn't always getting what we need. Sometimes our desires, even seemingly reasonable ones, can lead us away from God's best plan. Israel's request for a king wasn't inherently evil, but their motivation revealed hearts that had grown distant from their true king, the nation that had been called to be different, to show the world what it looked like to live under God's direct rule. Chose instead to become like everyone else. Their rejection of divine kingship would echo through centuries of mostly disappointing human monarchs, until another king would come, one who perfectly embodied both divine authority and human understanding.